So here we have Kevin Parker, who's logging into the member portal. This is our member service portal. And Kevin is interested in engaging to submit a problem. So he's going to engage with the virtual agent and work his way through the prompts to see how he can solve his problem. So he chooses report a problem. He's having a problem with his provider, but he decides he'd like to talk to a live agent. So the system will connect Kevin with a live agent. And next, we'll see a live agent receiving the incoming chat from Kevin. So the customer service representative is going to receive this chat from Kevin and start to triage the chat to determine how they can help Kevin. Kevin indicates that he's trying to get an appointment with his dermatologist and he's having trouble. Our CSR communicates and decides to transfer the call to a specialist. So now we're looking at the workspace for a grievance agent who has taken over the active chat, acknowledging Mr. Parker's issue and recording the interaction. So as we triage the issue with Mr. Parker, we're going to communicate that we can handle the situation by creating a case, a grievance case for Mr. Parker. Now the grievance case will allow us to track the entire life cycle of the grievance process. So first we're going to categorize the grievance. In this situation, it's an access to care, availability of an appointment that Mr. Parker is struggling with. So we'll save the grievance. And we'll let Mr. Parker know that we've created this grievance on his behalf so that he can track this particular case on the member portal. Our agent is going to go ahead and assign this case to themselves and let Mr. Parker know that we're going to continue to work this case through the process. As you can see, Mr. Parker is quite happy about that. So next, we're going to get into the actual process of working the case. And we're going to let Mr. Parker go for now. And we're going to refocus on the grievance agent process of working the case for Mr. Parker. Now this is going to amount to accepting the case and opening it officially so that it's actually running against SLAs, and we're measuring in a couple ways the response and resolution of the grievance. So first we'll follow a playbook that's predefined for how this process should work, verifying the input information. Our next step is to do research and actually gather the evidence. Now we've spoken to Mr. Parker, so we know what the issue is, and we've actually gathered that information. Here we're illustrating an acknowledgement email that is automatically generated by the system. Next, we'll look at our playbook to see what next step there is. Now, playbooks are for data consistency, process execution consistency. So the next thing we have is an opportunity to create a couple tracking tasks. So the first is going to track the inquiry from the complainant, which is Mr. Parker. So any information that we need to track related to our discussions with Mr. Parker, we can track within that task. That task has its own activity stream. We'll document here the description of what's going on in that tracking task. And then we'll create a task actually for the respondent. The respondent's going to be our provider. And we're going to reach out to that provider shortly and seek to see if we can get a sooner appointment for Mr. Parker. So we've saved those tracking tasks. A little more documentation so that we have traceability, visibility to what's going on in our conversations with the respondent and the complainant. Now we spoke to the office and we have some options to present Mr. Parker. So our next step is around determination. Next, we're going to post some comments to Mr. Parker that'll show up on the member portal. And he'll be notified that new comments have been made, and he can link directly to that portal and engage in a conversation with our grievance agent. So we'll post those comments after we've spoken to the provider to find some options for Mr. Parker. Mr. Parker happens to be on the portal and answers our initial question around which option he'd like to take. So he's happy with taking the option we've presented. We'll do a little more documentation regarding the respondent task. We'll communicate to Mr. Parker again via the portal, the options that we have. That'll be transmitted to the portal and Mr. Parker real time. So you can see we've given him a detailed message to make an option. He's decided that he'd like the sooner appointment with the Kentucky Dermatology office, actually. So we're going to go ahead and line that up. And at this point, we're going to work to resolve the case now that we've determined a resolution that Mr. Park is happy with. So we just need to do our wrap up, and we will document and close out our tasks. So for the complainant, we'll record the decision and move that task to completion and save it. And next we'll document and save our task to the respondent. Close those tasks out. Our email we just showed. And we'll jump back to our playbook, which will keep us honest. We'll mark our evidence complete. We'll review our tasks, which are both complete. And we'll move to our last step in the playbook, which is resolution. Now here we're going to use a template. We have some predefined resolutions. These will populate resolution codes and notes appropriately, as you can see, and we still have the option to provide some additional comments. So we'll go ahead and put in our chosen option for the appointment. So at this stage, you can see the case is resolved. We have documented our tracking tasks. We also have a resolution email notification that went out to Mr. Parker. We can look at our completed playbook, our completed details. At this stage, we're all done.